Death penalty, execution, capital punishment. Whatever you may call it, we all know that it never ends well. That is for the convict at least. Capital punishment stems from the Latin word capitalis, which means off the head. So you probably know where I'm heading with this, so we better just move on. Capital punishment has existed ever since the early days of society, from the times of ancient Greece, the Roman Empire, to the Middle Ages and up until now, the present. Though this act has long been part of human history, its use has ever since been filled with controversy for just as long, with religious bodies such as the Catholic Church consistently being involved. And today, that is exactly what we'll be discussing: the Catholic Church on the penalty of death. What exactly is the Church's stand on this such sensitive topic? Are they in favor? Do they oppose it? Has their stance ever changed, or has it remained solid for centuries? Those are the questions we seek to find answers to here in Christian Morality. To this day, many Catholics argue and some even fight over their opposition on capital punishment. But I think many will be surprised that for much of history, the Catholic Church has actually believed that capital punishment, or the penalty of death, was acceptable and even dubbed as essential in society. Pope Innocent III. Innocent III became Pope on the 8th of January 1198, and he made known to all his proposition on capital punishment.
The secular power can, without mortal sin, exercise judgment of blood, provided that it punishes with justice, not out of hatred, with prudence, not precipitation.
To put it simply, what he is saying is that just for as long as the death penalty is performed justifiably, its performance is done without committing mortal sin. And throughout the Middle Ages, the Holy See authorized the turnover of heretics to the secular authority for execution. This became known as the Inquisition. It is what the Pope Lucius III mandated in order to fight heresy or combat heresy at the time.
Those who were found guilty would be taken to a sermo generalis, or what they called a public homily. There, heretics would be tortured and killed.
Catholics who are in favor of capital punishment would cite that death penalty is consistent throughout the Bible, and that they say that the scriptures themselves mandate the use of capital punishment.
Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. Genesis chapter 9, verse 6.
The passage implies that when a man kills another man, he too shall be killed by man. And in 1929, the Vatican even included death penalty to whoever takes the life of the Pope. Now, we go back to the beginning, to perhaps the most famous, or should I say infamous, occurrence of capital punishment: the crucifixion of Jesus Christ.
You would have no authority over me at all, if it had not been given to you from above. For this reason, the one who handed me over to you has the greater sin.
Another argument of Catholics who approve of capital punishment ties with that verse. They argue that God Himself created capital punishment because at the time Pontius Pilate was to decide whether Jesus lives or die. Jesus tells him that the power to make that decision was given to him by God. Now that statement personally is indeed very controversial to involve God himself, but this is what pro-capital punishment Catholics argue. According to them, a state who performs the penalty does not act on their own authority, but rather as agents of God. Now this argument was well expressed by Saint Augustine.
The same divine law which forbids the killing of a human being allows certain exceptions, as when God authorizes killing by a general law or when He gives an explicit commission to an individual for a limited time. Since the agent of authority is but a sword in the hand and is not responsible for the killing, it is in no way contrary to the commandment, "Thou shalt not kill," to wage war at God's bidding, or for the representative of the state's authority to put criminals to death, according to law or the rule of rational justice. Augustine, the City of God.
So with all the information provided, one can really say that the Church's approval of capital punishment can really have a basis to justify its mandate. And going back to what was mentioned earlier, in 1929, even the Vatican had a penal code that incorporated death penalty. So if you think about it, death penalty was really part of the Catholic Church. But that picture began fading in 1969. Because in 1969, opinions on the penalty began turning. Fast forward to 1995, Pope John Paul II's encyclical entitled Evangelium Vitae, or Book of Life, suggested that capital punishment should be avoided as much as possible unless it is the only way to defend society from its offenders.
Ought not go to the extreme of executing the offender except in cases of absolute necessity. In other words, when it would not be possible otherwise to defend society. Today, however, as a result of steady improvements in the organization of the penal system, such cases are very rare, if not practically non-existent.
Because of this, the Catechism of the Catholic Church was updated to support the statement of Pope John Paul II.
The traditional teaching of the Church does not exclude presupposing full ascertainment of the identity and responsibility of the offender, recourse to the death penalty when this is the only practicable way to defend the lives of human beings effectively against the aggressor. If instead bloodless means are sufficient to defend against the aggressor and to protect the safety of persons, public authority should limit itself to such means, because they better correspond to the concrete conditions of the common good, and are more in conformity to the dignity of the human person.
The days of the Church's approval of capital punishment were now slowly becoming memories of the past. Even the successor of Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, continued what his predecessor has started. He proposed that capital punishment be abolished from the face of this earth.
I express my hope that your deliberations will encourage the political and legislative initiatives being promoted in a growing number of countries to eliminate the death penalty and to continue the substantive progress made in conforming penal law both to the human dignity of prisoners and the effective maintenance of public order.
Presently, our current Pope Francis settled things once and for all when in 2015 he addressed the International Commission against the death penalty, stating that today the death penalty is inadmissible no matter how serious the crime committed. Francis exclaimed that capital punishment can never be justifiable, as judicial error will always be a possibility. Thus, it is something humanity or society no longer requires.
He stated that capital punishment is an offense against the inviolability of life and the dignity of the human person, which contradicts God's plan for man and society and does not render justice to the victims, but rather fosters vengeance.
It is now clear that as of today, at this very moment, the Catholic Church, headed by Pope Francis, is against the penalty of death. Brothers and sisters, we all live this life together. Perhaps it is best that we make the most out of this gift by choosing not to take, but to enrich the lives of others. And no matter what your stance may be on the topic we've just discussed, what matters most is that with everything we do and with everything we say, may it be for the glory of God.